Good morning, everybody. Will the clerk please call the order?
Good morning, everyone. It is now 11:02 a.m., Monday, May 4th. Calling the roll for the meeting, Board of Control. We have Nan Baker.
Here.
Dale Miller.
Here.
Trevor Macular serving as an alternate for Dan Brady.
Here.
Nicole English serving as an alternate for Mike Dever.
Here.
Mike Chambers serving as an alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
Lee Tucker serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer.
Here.
Lenora Lockett. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, if everyone could take a quick look at the minutes, or if there are any comments, if you can let me know now from April 27th. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes of April 27th. Do I have a second?
Here. I'm sorry. Second.
This is Trevor, second.
Okay. All right, Trevor, we're going to give it to you. Seconded by Trevor McAleer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Public comment.
Yes, we do have public comment at this time. This is in association with item number BC 2020-244, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services. And this is recommending an award to purchase interoperable communications portable radios and accessories for various community law enforcement departments. At this time, I am recognizing Dean DePiero, who is representing the Cleveland Communications. And you have exactly 3 minutes, Mr. DePiero, to speak. And then after that, we will move on to the regular items on the agenda.
Thank you very much. Members of the Board of Control, I appreciate the opportunity briefly to address you regarding BC 2020-244. On May 1st, I sent a letter through the clerk to distribute. It lays out the concerns that we have about the awarding of the bid to Motorola. My client is Cleveland Communications, and we've done business with the county on and off for the past 20 years, mostly in the safety and justice services area, selling and servicing radios for the county, Harris radios. In this particular matter, we are, as I indicated in my letter, we were the lowest bidder by almost a couple $1,000. Our bid was deemed non-responsive because of a notation that was sent, a supplemental document that was sent in addition to the county's template. As I indicated in the letter, my client, Alan Close, who's the principal of Cleveland Communication, responded to the bid and on the county's invitation to bid form and complied in every way. If there is a discrepancy that exists, it's one that was sent, there was a supplemental document that was sent entitled quotation, which had a different date as far as how long the pricing was good for. Our position is that he completed in every way the bid documents. They were compliant in every way. And to the extent that there's any discrepancy, it was on a document that was merely sent to give more information to the deciding individuals with regard to the specifications of the radios. Under Ohio law, a slight deviation such as that would not render the bid response non-responsive. So it's our position that it is a responsive bid document, and in addition, probably more importantly, the bid's actually lower than the second. We're actually the lowest, so it's a savings to the taxpayer, so we would respectfully request that the bid award be given to my client, Cleveland Communications. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DePiero.
Okay, moving on. Contracts and award, please.
Item number BC 2020-239, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on purchase order and enter into a contract with Michael Baker International, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $499,725 for bridge inspection, evaluation, structural modeling, and load rating services for Denison Harvard Bridge number 04.09.
English with Public Works. This is an award to Michael Baker International for the inspection and evaluations of the Denison Harvard Bridge. They were selected on an RFQ process. The RFQ was for 2 different projects, so the 2 top-ranking firms each got a contract. Baker is getting Denison Harvard. Arcadis should be coming up in the next couple weeks, and they received the other project, which is West 140th and 130th bridges. So they're split almost evenly as far as cost goes. They were compliant. There was actually no diversity goal, and that was explained because of the nature of the service is kind of specialized, and they're really a one-firm operation that's going to do all the work, except maybe renting equipment, so there was no diversity goal. I answered a few questions last week from council. If there's anything else you need, I can answer them now.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Dale Miller, second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Item approved. Thank you.
Next item number BC 2020-240, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on a purchase order to Flag Zone LLC in the amount not to exceed $49,536 for the purchase and delivery of 800 gross U.S. flags.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. This is the award recommendation of Flag Zone. It's a not to exceed dollar amount. These are for the annual delivery of U.S.-made flags to various cemeteries throughout Cuyahoga County for Memorial Day. It's for grave sites of our veterans. This was a formal bid process conducted with OPD. It went to 19 vendors. This year we actually had 5 bid proposals submitted, and we're going with the lowest bidder, which is Flag Zone.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any questions from the board members on this item?
Yes, this is Dale.
Go ahead, Dale.
I saw in the responses to questions that this is the one item that hasn't completely gone through the process. Can you explain what the status is?
I am not aware of any questions that were stemmed from this. This was, to the best of my knowledge, has gotten through the system. I'm not sure if OPD would like to chime in on that. This was a formal bid that was closed in, I believe, February. There were some delays with a wet signature on one of the documents that prevented this from being on an earlier meeting. But it was even an on-base dating back to, I believe, April 13th. So I'm not, I'm kind of here in the dark with that question, Mr. Miller. I apologize.
So this is Andrea speaking in regards to where the item is located at. Tom, right now it's located in Kristen McNeil's queue. It's in the Board of Control queue, but it has not completed the routing for Infor. I'm sorry, it's the opposite. It's in Infor, but it did not reach the queue for the Board of Control. I'm sorry. So right now it is in Kristen McNeil's queue.
Lawson or on base?
On base.
So on base, it's been an on base since April 13th. I'm not sure, and I may have mentioned this last Wednesday, that it may have been added to on base. There was a date put in there for an earlier meeting, and then once it was finally approved by OPD, because of that last wet signature form, it was never re-added to a meeting. But this has been in the system, I believe, since mid-April, and that's on base.
So as of
typically, the titles and on base have the asterisk in the parentheses. The date that's attached to this did not have the parentheses around it. So I don't know. This is doc handle 464-33455. and I'm pretty sure this is dated mid-April. So, again, I'm not sure, what happened.
No, Tom, you're correct, but there was a notice, there was a note added to the item that it had not completed the routing. So as of today, it is still incomplete, but it's in Kristen's queue. So we can talk about that offline, but just wanted to answer the question that was raised by Councilman Dale Miller.
Okay, any further questions on this item?
Yes,
Go ahead, Dale.
my other question is whether the distribution of flags to the various cemeteries is going to be at all affected by COVID-19, or are we able to execute the usual program without any variation?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. We're hopeful that it will be executed on time. One of the delays we had last month was many of these vendors in this industry shut down based on location of what state they were in. Flag Zone is located in Pennsylvania, I believe, and they were shut down last month. They were supposed to open up back weekend. We've been in constant touch with them over the last few weeks, and they're confident they should be able to get them to us as soon as possible. Once this is approved today, we're going to give them the green light. As far as deployment, it's going to be as it has been in the years past. But to answer your question, I don't think there's any guarantees in this environment that we're all in today. But we're working closely with the vendor. We're in touch with the Veteran Services. They're aware of it as well. And I think the vendor is going to do what they can to not just meet our objective, but there's other businesses in the same boat.
Further questions?
This is Nan Baker.
Sure, Nan, go ahead.
Just confirming that I understand that these flags are coming from Gilbertville, Pennsylvania, but are they produced there? Are they made there? Are they distributed? Are they made in that plant, or at least in the United States?
They are made in the United States. I would have to go back to confirm either with one of my analysts or to the vendor to find out if they are made in that factory. I believe they are made there. I think Flag Zone only has one location, but I would have to verify with them. But they are all U.S. made.
Yes,
always have been.
Okay, just want to confirm that our flags that we're putting in these important places are made in the United States. So thank you for that.
Yes, these are. Historically, as long as I've been here, that's one of the requirements as part of the bid, that they are all U.S. made.
Thank you.
Further questions?
So, because of the shortness of time, I'm ready to move on this today, but my question is whether there should be any contingency on completing the process. Can we get an opinion from OPD on that?
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. My understanding is that the item has completed the N4 workflow, and if it is submitted as an ERP item and it is in the user department's queue, it just needs to be submitted. And it will be with the clerk's Board of Control.
So we're good to go, basically?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve this item then, barring no other questions. So I'll make a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Nan Baker.
Seconded by Councilman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item approved.
Thank you.
Number BC 2020-241, Department of Development, recommending to amend Board of Control Approval Number BC 2020-188, dated March 23rd, 2020, which approved loan loss reserves to various organizations in the total amount not to exceed $460,000 to support bank financing for loans to minority borrowers through the Capital Access Fund of Greater Cleveland. April 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2027. And at this time, we are changing from a loan loss reserve to a forgivable loan to National Development Council in the amount not to exceed $230,000 through the Community Impact Loan Fund.
Good morning. Paul Herdig for the Department of Development. What we're asking approval for today is to change the use of the $230,000 that was previously approved by this board as a loan loss reserve, and instead to have the same money used as a forgivable loan to National Development Council. They in turn are in the process of underwriting short-term $10,000 working capital loans to businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19. They have 4 that are ready to go, and they're underwriting 3 more. And we fully expect the full $230,000 will be used in short order. The reason we're doing this is, frankly, that the need is more urgent to keep the businesses open than we had even anticipated a month ago when we did this for the loan loss reserve. We've had discussions with National Development Council, and the agreement is that hopefully all these businesses will be able to repay these short-term loans. These are 1-year loans, and the money will then go back to its original purpose, which was to be a loan loss reserve for a 7-year term that will leverage about $2 million of additional investment for loans to minority businesses. We believe this is a good way to do a part of the work that needs to be done as the response. We are counting this as a part of what we call the Stabilization Fund, which is really made up of a number of our partners doing things like this to get short-term assistance to businesses. I was asked by a member of the board, why they're using this name called the Community Impact Loan Fund. This is the legal subsidiary that the National Development Council uses for all their non-SBA lending. So the money is kept separate. Only in Cuyahoga County will they use the money that we provide. It will not be intermingled and used in another part of the country. I'm just going to stop here and invite any questions.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, this is
Dale. And I have a question. In the backup material, it said that this was part of a larger program also including Jumpstart and ECDI and a couple of other players. Can you tell me how much money has been put into each of the other programs?
Yes, I'm checking for that. We had a flyer that we're almost finished with that summarizes each of the programs. So this is not quite fully official, but one of these is Village Capital Corporation, which is affiliated with Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, where they're going to be, and I see the term sheet, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm trying to see if I have the exact commitment here. We have Urban League of Greater Cleveland is going to do $100,000 worth of loans. ECDI is going to do $1.5 million worth of loans. That's over a 3-year period. Jumpstart is doing $400,000 worth of loans, which is to companies they're working with already. And I want to say, I think the scale of the Cleveland Neighborhood Progress is on the order of about $500,000 of loans that they're doing.
And is this being funded through the county's economic development loan program?
Now, each of these that we've talked about have unique funding sources. So the only one we're directly involved in is the $230,000 we're talking about today. The others are using funding from other sources.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Mackler, did you have a question?
Well, yes. When do you think the money will get distributed from the first round?
Are we talking about the first round of grants?
Yeah.
Okay. I am told that the 200 businesses have all received their initial emails, and they're all in the process of doing what they have to do to securely give their bank account information. And we expect that this week, as soon as that bank account information is processed, that the actual grant disbursements will be made by ACH this week.
And is that for 2,500 or 5,000?
It's for 2,500. Due to the number of businesses that applied, at 5,000 we could only have paid for 100 grants, and the decision from the committee was they wanted to go with double the number of grants.
Okay, and then I know there was some discussion a week or so ago about if we're checking delinquent taxes, before we give these grants out? What ended up being the final policy on review of delinquent taxes?
Sure.
To be eligible?
Staff here in the Department of Development actually did all the checking, and I can tell you it was pretty thorough. We went through the county's GIS system and looked for basically anything under the name of the business owner, and the cutoff that was at $1,000, in most cases, the people getting the grants had no delinquency. There were a small number that had some delinquencies, but under $1,000 each.
And are we only looking at property taxes?
Yes, this was real property tax, but again, it was any property the business owner might own anywhere in the county.
And how many had less than 1,000?
I would have to get that information, which I will get. I don't want to be inaccurate, but my impression was it's a very small number out of the 200.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Okay, are there any further questions from the board? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Mr. Trevor, second.
Seconded by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor say aye.
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 Item approved. Next item.
Moving on to item BC 2020-242, Department of Information Technology, submitting an amendment to a contract with Progress Software Corporation, formerly known as Telerik, Inc., for software licenses, support, and maintenance services on the Sitefinity web content and case management system, and is for the period March 31st, 2017 through April 30th, 2020, to extend the time period to April 30th, 2022, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $68,275.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. The Sitefinity case management and content management system allows us to make changes on the county websites. We'll be able to upload content and make any kind of amendments to the website as the need occurs. We are extending this for an additional 2 years. Per the advanced questions from the BOC, this is a 10% decrease in the cost annually. So we would request your approval of this amendment to our contract.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
This is
Trevor,
Dale.
second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved.
Next item is a two-part item. Item number BC 2020-243, Department of Information Technology. A, submitting an RFP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to Dell Marketing LP in the amount not to exceed $5,142.74 for the purchase of 2 Microsoft SQL Server Standard Core licenses for the Kronos system for use by Court of Common Pleas Juvenile Court Division. And B, recommending the award and purchase order in connection with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. These 2 SQL Server licenses will allow the juvenile court to upgrade their Kronos system. And as such, they will be purchased as a part of our Microsoft EA agreement, which expires on June 30th of this year. And this is the prorated cost, for those 2 licenses.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board on this item? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
This is Dale. I will second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Item approved.
Thank you.
Next item, item BC 2020-244, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, recommending an award on a purchase order to Motorola Solutions, Inc., in the amount not to exceed $350,262 for the purchase of 183 P25 7/800 megahertz interoperable communications, portable radios, and accessories for various community law enforcement departments. And it's for the period May 4th, 2020 through June 15th, 2020 for the following communities: A, City of Beechwood; B, City of Lyndhurst; C, City of Shaker Heights; and D, City of University Heights.
Good morning, Mary Beth Vaughn from Public Safety. And as Andre has already read into the record, these are for the police departments as listed on the agenda. We did issue a formal bid. We received 3 bids, and as has been previously mentioned, the lowest bid was deemed to be non-compliant due to conflicting information in their bid packet. Specifically, the RFB required that pricing be valid for 60 days. The vendor included a quote in their bid packet that stated pricing was only good through March 8th, 2020. It was 27 days after the bidding closed. The difference between the vendor that's being awarded and the vendor that was deemed non-compliant is $1,335.90, which is 0.4% of the total cost.
Okay, thank you, Mary Beth. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
Yes, this is Dale. And my question is from a legal standpoint, when do we have to just take what we have and say it's too bad they're not compliant, and when do we have the flexibility to go back to the bidder and say, are you aware that you were required to keep the price open for 60 days? Was this an oversight on your part? Is this what you really meant? When do we have flexibility to do something like that?
Is that question to public safety or is that to the law department?
Whoever would, hopefully maybe both.
Want to take a stab, Lenore?
Lenore Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Usually when there's an issue within bid, we will consult with the law department to determine what is in the best interest of the county and which will include what may be the likelihood of legally defensible. Again, I'm not the law department, but usually when there's a issue with the bid, we will consult with the law department to determine. In most cases, you will have to go case by case. There could be various technicalities on the bid, a document not being signed, a document not being posted, a document not being checked, a typographical error, a miscalculation or adding or subtraction error. So there are a full range of issues that can make a bid be evaluated for whether or not it's compliant.
Okay, well, that answer is very helpful. My next question is whether the law department was consulted in this situation.
Yes, it was.
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity again. Yes, the law department was consulted on this matter.
And what did the law department say?
The discussion was with the law department, the Office of Procurement and Diversity, and the user department, Public Safety and Justice Services, and it was determined in this case that there was a conflict with the information provided related to the price period that was being held, and it was determined to award to the next lowest bidder.
And did the law department say that the conflict was fatal and that we did not have any flexibility to ask the bidder for clarification?
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. I do not recall fatal or that was our only choice. That is not my understanding. However, if someone from the law department is on, I would prefer if they would speak to their view.
Jared, are you on by chance?
I am on the call, and I was not privy to those conversations, so unfortunately, I don't have the answer for you right now, Councilman, but I can definitely find those out and report back to the specifics of the involvement of the law department.
So,
Mr. Chairman, this is Greg Hu.
Yes, Greg, please.
Hey, can you hear me? To the councilman's question, when there are bids, you generally don't have the opportunity to go back and discuss clarifications with the bidders. You have that option when you have requests for proposals, but not with bids.
This is Nan Baker. I have a question.
Go ahead, Nan.
On page 1 of 6, where it does say return all quotes to Office of Procurement and Diversity, it does say on there, all prices quoted must be held firm for a period of no less than 60 days. And there is an agreement by the person making this quote that he signs his name to that. So I understand that that's a conflict with the typed in that is on the quotation, but you know, that does seem like a pretty loose way of canceling this bid when I think that the signature of the person who's making the bid understands that it's a 60-day quote. So how do we balance that? I mean, I would think that it would be, especially since we only had a couple of bids, it's not like we had 25 bids, that we would go back and just make sure we understand what it is that this bidder is telling us, especially when he puts his name to the quote of understanding 60 days. I guess to the legal department, wouldn't there have been, especially if it was brought to your attention, wouldn't that have been a red flag to at least go back and determine, what this bidder was trying to tell us in the two different dates? I mean, it looks like an obvious mistake, but I don't know unless you ask the person who put it on there.
Mr. Chairman, this is Greg. Again, when you're doing bids, you don't have the option of going back and having discussions with the bidders. The option would be to reject all bids and then start over.
So, Greg, this is Trevor. Just as follow-up to that, if the proposal had 40 plus 40 and they accidentally put the answer was 81, we don't have the flexibility there to go back and clarify that if it's a bid?
Generally, math errors aren't something you can, I mean, it's a math error, it's a mistake. It's an error in the bid.
And so we couldn't go back to the vendor for clarification there either because it was a bid?
In a bid context, no, I don't think we should, no.
Okay, are we legally not allowed to do that, or we can't do, or is that just a matter of setting a precedent that we shouldn't do that?
Generally, a bid's a bid, and you don't get a chance to clarify if you've made a mistake.
Then, Mary Beth, this is Trevor, just a follow-up, I think, to you probably. Was the bid spec, did it require a response to be in a certain form and then vendors could submit additional backup? Or how were vendors required to respond to the bid itself?
There was the bid packet, and then they had any additional information attached to it.
And am I right, and the bid packet response was right, it was just the backup material that was not correct?
It was the supporting documentation that was incorrect.
This is Dale, and it has been at least 2 or 3 years since we've had a bid protest, which which speaks well of the process that we've conducted. But I would be more comfortable in this situation if, seeing that this doesn't happen very often, if we would hold this for a week and have the law department take a careful look at this, and in particular, the question in my mind would be whether the applicant's signature on the primary document, which specifies a 60-day time period, might be seen as overriding the conflicting information on what was simply a supplementary document.
Councilman Miller, this is Alex Pelham, Director of Public Safety. I would ask that, while I'm not going to formally oppose that idea, that these are going specifically on Homeland Security grants, one of which expires in June, so that the speediness of this, while I don't want to rush the process, there is a timeline and there is a countdown, and with the COVID complications with production and delivery and whatnot, I just want to make sure we're timely on this and we don't put ourselves in a hole of not being able to meet grant deadlines as well.
Alex, this is Trevor. When does the grant expire?
June 30.
Okay. I agree with Councilman Miller. I think we should hold it for another week. It seems like we'd have enough time with the grant, and kind of get better clarification from the law department.
This
Okay.
is Nan Baker. I agree with that also.
All right, the item will be held at the request of our board members. We'll move on to the next item. Thank you.
Moving on to the next item, it's a two-part item, item number BC 2020-245, Department of Health and Human Services. A, submitting an RP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to United Way of Greater Cleveland in the amount not to exceed $80,000 for provision of up to 10 navigators/staff to operate and manage the increased volume of calls to 211 HelpLink, to assist with community resource navigation and MedFirst services, to residents of Cuyahoga County as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's for the period May 4th, 2020 through May 31st, 2020. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning. This is Christine Alexander, Department of Health and Human Services. On behalf of the County Executive's Office, we are seeking approval for a grant agreement with United Way. This is in response to the COVID pandemic. United Way staffs the county's 211. The emergency line provides information, resources, and linkages to residents in need. They do this for the state of Ohio, and Cuyahoga County represents about 86% of their total call volume. Since the onset of the COVID crisis in March, the 211 line has doubled their call volume. United Way has also built out a coronavirus helpline and a small business helpline for Cuyahoga County, and they have answered more than 4,000 calls to date. With these dollars, United Way will be hiring 10 community navigators. The community navigator, the period that the agreement is requested for, is from April 1 through May 31st. The highest requested categories are food, income support, housing, and utility assistance based on a report from United Way. And we did get two previous questions, one regarding will this go through May. Again, the period of time that the dollars were calculated on was for the months of April and May for the 10 navigators' salaries. United Way did indicate in their request if the crisis is ongoing that they will convey those needs to the county executive. There was also a question regarding the CARES funding be used instead of levy dollars. I did reach out to and spoke with David Merriman, who indicated that, it's my understanding, the county is still kind of wading through very complex requirements with the CARES dollars, establishing policies regarding how we're going to use this. If it's approved for this service, he will seek reimbursement using the CARES dollars instead of the levy dollars.
Yeah, this is Mike Chambers too. I believe we are going to go ahead that route, as far as the CARES Act. But any questions on this item from the board?
Yes, this is Dale, and my question is, given the April 1 start date, have these navigators already been hired, and are they already in the process of providing service?
Yes, that's my understanding. They have been hired and are providing and answering calls.
So, why was this not brought to our attention prior to the start date?
So the request did come in on March 20th, and we acted upon it as soon as we received it. So getting it through the contract system, unfortunately, took several weeks. Additionally, they needed to respond as soon as the COVID crisis emerged.
And is Cuyahoga County the only entity paying for this, or do we have partners?
With respect to these navigators, it's just Cuyahoga County.
Okay, are there further questions on this item?
Chris, this is Trevor. Do you expect an increase or an extension after May 31st? Have we reviewed that yet? Where do we stand on potentially extending this even beyond May 31st?
I'm not sure whether United Way has reached out to Armand yet. And again, the indication that they would reach out came in March. I'm not sure anybody at that point in time sort of knew how this would play out. My sense is that there still may need to be a continuation after May 31st. I don't know that that will be the hard end.
Any further questions from the board?
Just one. This is Nan Baker.
Sure.
Yeah. It's probably in front of me, but I see that this is for the period of May 4th to May 31st. But I see that the answer in the backup, or I should say to our question, is from April 1st to May 31st. So I guess I'm struggling with where did April 1st even come from?
So April 1st came in the request. I'm not sure where the May 4th came from. My understanding is that it would be effective upon approval. Because it's a grant agreement, it would be basically a single reimbursement to United Way. So we needed a begin date as we move forward with processing the request.
So should this be dated April 1st, 2020 to May 31st, 2020?
The services are being, because it's a grant agreement and we don't have a lot of experience doing that, I can check whether those dates should be different. And again, my sense is when we made the request, it was going to be effective upon approval, so I can look into where that May 4th date came from.
As you said in your testimony, we already have engaged those workers as of April 1st because, of course, it was needed then. But I guess I'm just questioning why this wouldn't have been dated April 1st, so that we can use these dollars to pay for those that have been with us that long.
I can find out that answer for you.
Okay, I thought maybe I just missed something here, but I think the dates are, the dates don't seem correct to me. Right.
Right, and again, because it's not a contract and it's a grant agreement, my understanding that it would be just issued in a single payment. So I'm not sure, how pertinent the May 4th date is, but I can double check for you.
Hey, Chris, this is Mike Chambers.
Yeah.
Would you want us to hold this so we don't have to come back and undo it, or are you good with the May 4th? I just don't want to have a problem after the fact.
I don't think the May 4th will be a problem in terms of being able to reimburse them for services, but I can definitely find out how pertinent that date is. I'd rather not hold it since they've been answering these calls, and again, they did build out 2 county separate hotlines above and beyond what they've currently been doing, which has required, obviously, increased staffing.
If I may, to Mike Chambers, in your experience, do you feel that the dates could be an issue? And secondly, if we were to get reimbursement, could there be, a cloud there that we may not get it because the dates don't correspond to the time that we actually used it for payment in April?
I'm not 100% familiar with her grant issue or the dates, but I mean, if we use it for COVID, I'm fine because it fits the category of additional help and services. So I'm trying to figure out how the grant's even coming into play if we might take the full 80,000 to COVID.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why I'm wondering if the grant's even applicable, because you can't double, I don't want to say you can't double dip. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the date's fine as far as COVID for me. I just don't want to undermine anything else that Chris is doing.
We don't want to get caught where we can't pay for April expenses because this is dated May 4th. That's my only question.
Okay, I'd be glad to look into that.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's dated of today, but usually if she did anything prior, it should be noted. Chris, I think maybe we might want to hold it just to play it safe, unless anyone else, unless you feel strongly we got to move forward. I just don't want to have to come back and amend this thing.
Okay, and then, so the question is whether or not that grant period will allow us to make payments for services that have been rendered before May 4th? Is that the question?
Why don't you answer me? Why are you going with a grant on this as well?
Okay.
I've been advised that we can possibly correct minutes as if we had to at the next meeting, if we wanted to do that as well and maybe move forward with this item. Does anyone object to that? And then this will give Chris some time to look.
Could we bring the item back for amendment if we needed to next week, if we approve it now and everything's okay?
Sure.
Or
yeah, why don't we go that route then? We'll approve it today, and if we have to bring it back, then we will. This way we don't. I'm good with the CARES Act. It relates to anything after, the March 1st deadline, so that wouldn't be an issue for me. And I don't see how you would go to a grant if we're going to pay the full 80,000 anyways out of the CARES Act. So.
Right.
So I'll tell you what. I'll make a motion then just to move forward with this item. I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Mr. Trevor, second.
Seconded by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Item approved. Thank you.
Moving on to the next item, item number BC 2020-246. I'm sorry, excuse me. 246, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Early Childhood, recommending a payment on a purchase order to Case Western Reserve University Center on Urban Poverty and Community Development in the amount not to exceed $15,925.75 to pay final invoices for services rendered in connection with contract number CE 1800-328 for implementation and management of the Invest in Children program evaluation for the Universal Pre-Kindergarten 2.0 program, and it's for the period January 1st, 2020 through May 1st, 2020.
Good morning, Marcos Cortez with the Office of Early Childhood Invest in Children. This purchase order will allow us to pay the final invoices for a contract that ended December 2019. Towards the end of 2019, around October, November, the former director of ODM decertified this contract along with several others before time had expired. So as a result, when final invoices came due, we did not have enough funds in the contract to pay those final invoices. So we were able to get the appropriations put back in earlier this year, and so this is our process to try to finalize those final payments.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for this item? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Mr. Trevor, second.
Seconded by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor say aye.
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 Are we good?
Hear what she said.
Yeah, but we talked about that because of it's the only time you can pay it now is 2020, I guess. Marco, are you still there?
Yes.
Quick question. Normally in the caption, we would reference the prior year. I mean, you mentioned in your conversation that it goes back to December of 19.
And Marcos, that was one
All
of the...
services occurred before the end of 2019. The reason for these dates are the Lawson system, Infor system asked for delivery dates. So these were just to try to fit it within that time frame so we could pay those invoices.
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Yes, then the Lawson system, the date is for the year of the funding, so you have to have a current date because we're using 2020 funds, but the award is for services that were provided prior.
Yeah. So we already motioned to approve, and Trevor seconded. I just want to make sure the board's good. We did verbalize that, even though it may not be written. Does anyone have any concern on that? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on. Next item.
Next item, item number BC 2020-247, Court of Common Pleas Juvenile Court Division, recommending awards on various purchase orders and enter into agreements with various municipalities in the total amount not to exceed $3,936.74 for the Community Diversion Program, and it's for the period March 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020, for the following municipalities. A, City of Bedford Heights, in the amount not to exceed $422.61, and B, with the City of Highland Heights in the amount not to exceed $1,514.13.
Good morning, Sarah Baker with Juvenile Court. These are just two more of our Community Diversion Program agreements that we have with all of the municipalities in the county. It's a program that we utilize to help divert these youth from official court involvement.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Just a quick question from me. Are you using the activity code to track all of the COVID-related items on this?
Yes.
Okay, good. Are there any questions from the board members? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second. Trevor, second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
This item is a two-part item. Item number BC 2020-248, Sheriff's Department. A, submitting an RP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Race Ahead CLE, LLC, in the amount not to exceed $36,080 for the purchase of 14,000 3-ply disposable face masks and 10,000 KN95 masks for use by jail, law enforcement deputies, and protective services staff as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Steve Witt with the Sheriff's Department. These next three items are all fairly related. This first item is an RFP exemption request for the purchase of masks for the Sheriff's Department. As you all may know, there's a global shortage of medical supplies, which resulted in the Sheriff's Department putting out numerous bids and contacting over 300 vendors directly to locate various medical supplies. This vendor, Racehead Cleveland, offered us the ability to import masks directly from the manufacturer in China, and thus far we've received over 20,000 masks at the best price that we were able to get, which was for the N95 equivalents was about $2.39 a mask. The 3-ply masks were about 87 cents a mask. We contacted EMA to verify that, one, we were allowed to import masks, and two, to find out if there were better vendors available, and they gave us a green light to go ahead and make this order.
Thank you, Stephen. And you're using that activity code as well?
This is tracked with the COVID activity code.
Perfect.
We received a earlier question regarding why this is listed as general fund instead of CARES Act money. we have to look into how to go about using the CARES Act money. But if this is eligible to do so, we certainly can.
Yes, utilizing that code will eventually get that expense transferred over to the CARES Act, and we'll handle it with Matt Ruby. I just wanted to confirm. Any questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question. This is Dale, and my question is so in normal operations, when are the N95 masks used and when are the 3-ply masks used?
The 3-ply masks are used in the jail at all times by corrections officers. They're also used by civil and law enforcement when they're doing any work. The N95s are, right now, as far as I'm aware, are used only when directly dealing with inmates or suspects that are positive or tested positive or may have come in contact with somebody that tested positive.
And do we distribute masks to inmates?
I believe they are distributing the 3-ply masks to all the inmates and the N95 equivalent masks to those that are positive.
Are there further questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Trevor.
Yes.
I don't know if you got a chance to look at the written answers from the advanced questions, but I think there's some things in there that you might want to talk over with the sheriff in terms of the CARES Act funding and stuff like that. So I don't know if you got a chance to look at the responses yet, but I think there's some things in there that they could use your guidance on.
Okay, Trevor, I'll take a look at them. Thanks.
And then
this is Nan Baker. In following that, because we may be restricted as to how we can spend the CARES Act funding, we need to be very careful about what we spend our general fund dollars on, if it at all qualifies, even if it's pushing the envelope of what it qualifies for. We need to be very careful about what we pay for when perhaps the CARES Act could, in fact, pay for it. So, getting this process of understanding, and if the sheriff's office needs guidance, they're in the front line. We need to make sure that we understand what we can spend these dollars on and use them for those purposes. That's all I'll comment. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Mike Chambers, real quick. We at the very beginning, we came out with an activity code for all the departments to utilize if they thought that it was close to fitting the parameters related to COVID-19. A lot of departments, we're asking them to use their own budget. Obviously, there are quite a handful of emergency purchases that I work through Trevor and Council President Brady, as well as council members, to get approved. What's going to happen is everyone using that activity code, the grant manager will be going through them one by one, making sure they are relevant and are able to go over to the CARES Act. And then we'll start doing expense adjustments accordingly. If they're not, then it's going to stay within the department's budget. So that's kind of our game plan on trying to tackle that. Because a lot of departments are buying extra disinfectant, things like that come through office supplies. And as long as they're using the activity code, we can run reports and track all that. So
that's great to hear, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah. Trevor, do you want to follow up with something?
Yeah, I mean, one of the written responses we received was that most of these supplies have already been received. And Mike, I mean, this isn't really for you, but more for the sheriff's office. But as we've gone through these emergency purchases pretty much on a daily basis, why would we order these without the appropriate approval? Because now kind of the Board of Control is in a spot where what happens if we were to say no to this item?
Yeah,
So these were...
Go ahead.
So these items were originally procured in mid-March, and we've gone through the process. One of the delays on this particular one was that we had to get the vendor set up in the ERP system. But the reason why these are processed as RFP exemptions rather than coming forward first with an emergency purchase request is, one, there is some confusion as to the process for the emergency purchase and time-sensitive mission critical, because I know there's a previous item that one of our staff has been working on as a time-sensitive mission critical for some food service cards, and that's been several months and still hasn't been purchased. So the reason why we process these as RP exemptions is that we knew that we could get them through the process to get approval, and that we had no option to competitively bid these out because it was call vendors, and if you found a vendor that had supplies, you find out how much they have of it and get that order in right away, because if you call back in half an hour, typically they would already have committed that to another vendor.
And Trevor, just to follow up, I know that Alex in emergency management has been kind of coordinating with the sheriff's department as well. I know that he had given them some guidelines if they can get it, to get it as well. So that was in the beginning phases. So once again, that's why that activity code is very important.
Okay, Mike, and then I would just recommend, again, because if you look at the written responses, it doesn't appear that there's much coordination between that. And I mean, I don't think that's the case. So I think we just need to be cognizant of what we're putting in writing in terms of written responses to the questions, because it would appear that it doesn't look like there's much coordination.
Yeah, I will take a look at it, Trevor. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Okay,
Mike, just to add, I mean, as you know, just for Steve too in the sheriff's office, the emergency purchases is, fairly easy. It's probably, obviously one of the easiest tasks, and we still don't even order the equipment until approval is signed off from all the appropriate county executive and council president, and it doesn't take too long. But here we're kind of we're stuck where we've already received this equipment and we're seeking approval after the fact.
So Trevor, I would agree with you in normal circumstances. Unfortunately, with the COVID-19, our hands were kind of tied. We needed to prepare for the inevitability, which was inmates starting to test positive. And so our hands were pretty much tied. We had to order what we could. And so that's why that occurred before we had approval.
I mean, these could have been presented as mission critical, time sensitive, I guess, as another alternative, but.
Well, and this is Laura Sims with the sheriff's office as well. We just got some new guidance on time sensitive mission critical this week. Like I said, we were trying to process some things and had some issues with getting it through that, so we will try and take a look at that as well. As you can see, this particular order was over the amount. I can also tell you that I am in contact with EMA weekly, so if that didn't get into the response, I guess I didn't realize that you wanted to make sure that there's coordination, but we are weekly on that. EMA cannot provide us with the amount of equipment that we need to make sure everybody within the jail and the sheriff's department is safe. And so this is why we had to do it, is because we need to make sure everybody here is safe. And that was our biggest goal in getting all of this stuff done right now. Because at the time, like I said, in putting this stuff together, we couldn't get it from EMA, we couldn't get anywhere. We were moving as quickly as possible just to try and make sure that we were keeping everybody here safe. And that was the bottom line of all of that.
Yeah, and I'm good with that.
Moving forward, we have a new procedure, so we will work with OPD on time sensitive critical.
Okay, and I'll follow up Bob Corey, because he's very involved, and we'll make sure that you have the process down. But this just goes in line with other agencies ordering things from office supplies. As long as they're putting the activity code down, we're going to pick it up and we'll eventually expense and get it to the care. So to me, that's the critical piece. But I will take a look at it, Trevor. Yeah.
If I just may add, I mean, I think that to Laura's point is basically the sole reason why council extended the flexibility on the emergency purchase threshold, because we understand that things need to be purchased right away. And I think when Mike follows up with you guys, I think that probably will be the best route moving forward, because it's the fastest way to order the stuff to ensure people are safe. And that was the intent behind council and the county executive increasing the flexibility there.
That's correct. All right, any further questions? Hearing none, I'm going to make a motion to approve this item. Do I have a second?
This is Dale, I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item is a two-part item, item number BC 2020-249, Sheriff's Department A, submitting an RP exemption which will result in award recommendation to Nashville Medical and EMS Products, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $14,007.36 for the purchase of various personal protection equipment and medical supplies for use by jail, law enforcement deputies, and protective services staff as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and B, submitting the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Steve Witt with the Sheriff's Department again. This is a request for an RFP exemption for $14,000 with Nashville Medical EMS Products. This vendor we found had several of the critical need items that we were requiring, including alcohol, wipes, hand sanitizer, safety glasses, shoe cover, and non-contact thermometers. We had initially found this vendor through one of our informal bids for hand sanitizer, and we found that they had the other items that we required, and so we committed to purchasing these supplies, including 75 thermometers, enough shoe covers to cover the jail, safety glasses for the jail, law enforcement, and protective services, hand sanitizer to distribute to each group, including law enforcement, the jail, and protective services, and alcohol prep pads for the jail.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
Yes, this is Dale. Are these items American-made as opposed to being imported?
That I do not know. Unfortunately, with the global medical supply shortage, I'm sure that most of the products were made overseas, but we didn't, with the shortage, we didn't have the luxury of seeking out American-made products.
Okay, any further questions? Hearing none, I will move to approve. Do I have a second?
I'm sorry, we didn't hear who seconded?
Trevor, second.
Seconded by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item.
Next item, item number BC 2020-250 is a two-part item, Sheriff's Department A, submitting an RP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to Extra Packaging LLC in the amount not to exceed $8,844.93 for the purchase of 5,000 isolation protective gowns for use by jail, law enforcement deputies, and protective services staff as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Steve Witt with the Sheriff's Department once again. This is a request for a RFP exemption, which resulted in the purchase of 5,000 isolation gowns for use by law enforcement, corrections officers in the jail, and protective services. My understanding is that these gowns are only used when they are in the pods with inmates that are COVID positive, or when law enforcement officers are transporting inmates to the Metro Health facilities.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this item? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second, this is Dale.
Seconded by Mr. Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Moving on to exemptions. Item number BC 2020-251, Department of Public Works, recommending an alternative procurement process which will result in an informal bid process and an award to a Baltimore Air Coil Factory authorized dealer located in Northeast Ohio in the amount not to exceed $160,000 for the Juvenile Justice Center Tower refurbishment project, and it's for the period May 4th, 2020 through December 31st, 2020.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works again. This item, we're looking for an approval of an alternate procurement process. The result is going to be an informal competitive bid process done internally by Public Works. It will be released to Baltimore Air Coil authorized dealers. These would be vendors that are certified and approved that have certified and approved technicians to work on the Baltimore air coil type of system. The project is at the Juvenile Justice Center. It's the cooling tower refurbishment. I believe the life expectancy of these towers is approximately 10 years. I believe we're at 12 years now, so I think we're good as far as the timing of having this done. If we were to go out and replace these, we're looking at 3, 4, possibly even 5 times this cost. So the best alternative is to actually have these refurbished. This is just the alternative procurement process that gives us the right to do the informal bid process to those authorized technicians and dealers. Any approval of the actual contract, that will come back to the board at a later date once we have the to-be awarded vendor selected.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Are there any questions on this item? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Yes, this is Dale. Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next
Thank
item.
you.
Next item, item BC 2020-252, Sheriff's Department, recommending an alternative procurement process on various purchase orders, which will result in award recommendations to various providers in the total amount not to exceed $1,208,000 for emergency off-site medical services for inmates for the period July 28, 2017 through December 31st, 2020 for the following providers: A, Metro Health Hospital; B, Cleveland Emergency Medical Service; C, St. Vincent Charity Hospital; D, University Hospital; and E, Fresenius Medical Care.
Steve Witt with the Sheriff's Department. This alternate procurement request will allow us to establish not to exceed purchase orders with the 5 aforementioned vendors for emergency off-site medical services. This is when inmates are sent off-site to various area hospitals or medical services.
Okay, are there any questions on this item?
Yes, this is Dale.
Go ahead, Dale.
Is this a contract that we've done in the past, or is this new?
These payments have been done in the past. They used to be done on office voucher because the individual payments were typically under that threshold. But because they all are with the same vendor in the new system, we are moving forward with not to exceed purchase orders to cover the entire year. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Are there further questions?
Yeah, this is Trevor, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, go ahead.
Will the contract or the purchase orders, do we owe for invoices going back to July of 2017, or is this only moving forward?
We do have outstanding claims, one that does date back to 2017 due to a Medicaid denial. So we do owe, I believe the breakdown is in the agenda. There's 1 from 2017, 9 from 2018, and then there's various from months of 2019.
And then I was a little confused on the responses to the advanced questions. The one answer said the current Metro contract limits the types of services that are provided in the jail medical unit. And then later on it talks about how if off-site visits are unavailable at Metro, or if a specialist can't see them at that time, what's causing us to use these additional 5 facilities? Is it because those specific services aren't in the Metro Health contract, or is it because at that given time Metro cannot provide that service?
Hey, Trevor, this is Laura Sims with the Sheriff's Office. What I can tell you is that the Metro contract that we have to provide services within the jail, in the medical unit in the jail, that particular contract limits what they can do within the jail. So anything that they can't do this within the jail unit, they have to send outside to other places. And they will typically send it to the Metro hospital, to handle it. However, when Metro can't handle it for whatever reason, they're too busy. For example, the I'm gonna say it, Fresenius Medical Care Unit. That's where we send all the patients for dialysis because Metro doesn't have a dialysis suite that can handle their load plus our load. And then other services, like if they don't have a specialist who's available, we would send them to St. Vincent's or University or something like that.
And is Metro, the medical team at Metro, they are the ones determining where the inmate goes for the medical care, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Laura.
Okay, any further questions?
One more, sorry, Mr. Chairman. Do
Sure.
we anticipate when this will come to council for approval? I know, I think at the time we weren't sure, but do we have a general sense of when this might come to council for consideration?
You mean, I'm sorry, you mean the big Metro contract?
Or will this 1.2 million, because this is just approving the alternative procurement process, right? Or will this allow for services to be rendered through a PO?
This will allow for services to be rendered through a PO, because these are all in addition to the big Metro contract. Because the big Metro contract that we have that runs the jail does not include services that are not taken care of within the jail. Does that make sense?
So approving 252 today, will that allow the county then to start paying those invoices from previous years?
Yes.
Okay.
Lenore
And
Lockett,
the Board
Office of Procurement and Diversity.
And the Board of Control has that ability to approve $1.2 million?
Lenore Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. As part of the
Oh, wait.
request for alternate procurement, I believe they are also asking for an exemption from aggregation, which would mean that they want each purchase order to stand on its own.
Correct. So it's not the
So
total.
we're doing both?
Yeah. Well, or wait, correct me if I'm wrong, Lenore, do we need to bring this back again for the approval of the purchase orders for each of them? I'm sorry, I was under the misunderstanding that this was to approve the alternate and to approve the not to exceed purchase orders together.
Lenore Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity, all the requests and details that are exemptions or different from the standard procedure should be detailed in the alternate procurement.
Okay, so we have to go back to the PO?
No.
Okay, so good, then it does allow for us to, like you said, do both of them, get the alternate procurement, and set up the not to exceed POs so that we can get these paid.
And Laura, Mike Chambers, I'm assuming each of them are under the PO threshold, right? The Board of Control, the $500,000.
500,000.
There's nothing over $500,000, because otherwise that would have to go to council.
Correct.
They're all under half.
Okay, if you're saying they are all under $500,000?
Yes.
Okay. Board members, any final questions?
Yes, this is Dale, and I was unclear. Am I correct that the item before us is only the alternative procurement process and that we're going to have another item come back to us to actually approve the contracts?
Lenore Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Yes, for item BC 2020-251, they are going to do an informal process for vendors or dealers that can do the refurbishment for Baltimore Air Coil Factory authorized dealers, and then they will come back with an award.
This is 252, though,
Well,
He
the
asked about
question
the
is on
previous one.
252.
Oh, 252, I'm sorry, my confusion. 252. I would have to.
Question on 252 is whether, am I right that we're only being asked to approve the alternative procurement process and that the actual contract would have to come back before the board at a later date?
Lenore Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity, per their summary, they state that these individual purchase orders to each vendor will be processed in N4 Lawson, providing the necessary procurement documentation, but would not require additional Board of Control approval. So that's their recommendation. It is the board's authority to make amend the request, make changes based on what they're willing to approve as far as this item.
Okay, thanks.
Laura, could you provide, roughly how much for each facility the maximum amount will be?
You know what, I don't have that information in front of me, at the moment, but I can get that to you. Stephen, do you have it? No, I'll get it to you.
Is the board comfortable moving forward at this time? Okay, well, we'll find out then. I will, if there's no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Do I have a second? Yeah.
Mike, this is Trevor. I'll second. I'm just a little confused. I mean, I think typically we see this come back again for approval. That's what I'm struggling with a little bit. I don't understand how, since it's, I thought, or I assumed this item was only approving the alternative procurement process, and then the actual dollar amounts with each vendor will come back at a later date. That's how at least I remember seeing these most of the time, how we do the kind of alternative procurement processes. So like for public works and stuff, they come back with the dollar amounts, if I remember correctly, for each vendor.
This appears to be worded differently. So, I mean, we can...
This is Nan Baker, and I would agree with that, as I thought we were also recommending an alternative procurement process, and not the actual amount. So I too am a little confused on the ask, the recommendation.
Okay, this is Laura Sims from the Sheriff's Office. We, instead of trying to make it a two-step procedure, we were trying to put it into one step so that we could get the payments to because you can see that some of these are from 2017, and we've already been holding on this process for a while. So instead of making it two steps, we're trying to speed things up and just do it in one, because I mean, the only difference is you're going to approve the alternative procurement, and then maybe next week you'll approve the purchase orders. And if you prefer we do that, we can. However, we could also do it in one step as well.
I think the board would like to at least know the dollar amounts. I think, I mean, at a minimum, we can probably hold this till next week until we can get that information. If the board is comfortable with that, I'm willing to do that.
I would like that, Mike, if possible, please.
And Laura, hopefully a week wouldn't hurt that much, and that way we can...
No.
Okay.
That's fine. I will get the extra information to you, and then and I'll talk to Andrea about updating the wording on it to make it a little bit more clear for next week as well.
All right, let's do that. We're going to hold this item then. So, okay. Moving on to the consent agenda.
We're moving on to the consent agenda, item number BC 2020-253.
Board members, let me know if you have any questions on those. Well,
Mr. Chairman, this is Trevor. Just we asked the one advanced questions, I think similar to your point earlier. Just want to make sure we're using the right code or whatever in case some of the PPE is COVID related. So that's something I would just ask if you could look at later as well, please.
yeah, Trevor, we're going to eventually hopefully start running some reports on some of this stuff. I don't want to get too premature, but absolutely. Matt Ruby's going to be coordinating that, so we'll do.
Thank you.
And Mike, if I may, if you could indicate when we're asked to approve that the code does in fact exist, or at least it's being looked into